Hi, AT from CNC at Home. I know Geek Weekend is kind of a long ways off, but I wanted to get a start on a new coaster for this year's Geek Weekend, which is at the end of February. To do this, I went out and looked for a bunch of images that would fit kind of our motif. We tend to do things around electronics and computers. Photography is always mixed in there, communications, watching movies, and all sorts of stuff. There really wasn't room to fit everything on here. Anyway, I started looking for images, and I created a collection of things that I thought looked cool, that might be useful. I took them into Photoshop. For instance, this dish image, I took that into Photoshop, and it's hard to tell here, but I made a transparent background out of it. So I did that, and the same with several of these other things. And that way I could layer them on here, and it wasn't a big deal. And it turned out okay. I'm not a graphics designer by any means, but it turned out okay. And when we do a preview, let me get this full screen, everything looks pretty good. But I had to cheat. And the reason I had to cheat is because this isn't Photoshop. This isn't creating graphical layers. So for instance, this laptop, even though I have it on top of these circuit board pathways, it burns all the circuit board pathways that are underneath here. So what I had to do is if we look at this, if we hide our images, you'll notice there's this big chunk of pathways missing from here, and there's also a pathway missing up here. There's one missing down here. That's so they don't show up behind these objects. Otherwise, you would have seen these pathways going through here. You would have seen a termination pathway in here. You'd have seen one come up into the camera. And so that's what I had to clean up. So what I'd like to do briefly is just kind of show you how I did that within LightBurn. So let's start a new project. Now we don't need to save that. And we'll bring in our images. So we'll bring in this tree, and we'll bring in the laptop. We'll just plop those two in here, and then I'll show you what I did. Okay, so the first thing, let's just take this and set it off to the side. I'm going to create a rectangle or a square. I'm going to hold the shift key so I get a perfect square. And that's going to be, put this on a red layer. So we're not going to actually burn this. And let's set the size of this, 108 millimeters. I have it locked, so both X and Y, and then we'll move it down into the corner. Okay, so that's going to be our working area. Now, with this image, there we go. Now with this image, I want to bring it over and have it lined up on the edge, something like that. But I don't want to use the image. So what I'm going to do is a trace image to create a vector file out of this. And because of the watermarks, it's kind of not getting this how I want it. So I'm going to adjust my threshold up. And if we look at this one as an example, I'm going to take this and keep increasing my threshold there until I've gotten my pathways, my circuit pathways, but the watermark then is removed. So we'll click OK, here. And then we can get rid of the original image. And let's switch that to a different layer. There we go. And we can bring our laptop in. And it's a bit big, so let's shrink this thing up. How does that look? Again, I'm just doing approximations on the size to get it kind of how I had done it. So something like that, maybe. And let's get that on the red layer. Okay, this looks great. This is how I'd want it to burn. This is done as vectors where it's filled. This is done as an image, so it's two different things. When we look at our preview, we'll be able to see what I was talking about. See how these pathways show up through the screen. You can see them through the laptop, and they will burn as they're a separate entity. They will burn onto the coaster as well as the laptop does. So to fix that, what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to edit these lines. I'm going to need to cut them off and delete the pieces between here and here. This is kind of a painstaking, putsy process. I really would have been better off just putting this into Photoshop or some other editing program and just putting these layers together and then output the final product. That would have probably been faster. You can do it here in LightBurn, and it's really not too bad. So let's do this real quickly. I'm going to just show this as lines. And to do the editing, what I did was on a separate layer, I'll choose the green layer, I started drawing lines that outline the laptop. So I'm going to come over to here. Wanting to snap there. There we go. And this will give me a rough outline of where I need to trim these lines. Across here. That's probably good enough. Okay. We don't need that filled. We'll just do lines. And then we'll hide our image. Now this green line shows me my laptop, and I want to get rid of these blue lines behind there. So to do that, I'm going to create a bunch of intersections. So by selecting my Edit Node option over here, I can hover over this intersection and press the letter I. Okay, I remember what the deal was. I need to ungroup all of these. There we go. When they're all grouped together, it's not going to let me edit what I need to edit. So let's try that again. I've selected this. I go to my Edit Nodes, and then I hover over this intersection and press the letter I. And that will insert. If we hover over here, we'll see what pops up. The I is not going to let me do that. Insert node point. And by having those, I'll be able to do the trimming that I want to do. Now that I have all of my little nodes in there, what I want to delete is what's behind the laptop. So I just hover over one of the lines and I can press the letter D, and that deletes it. I'm sure there's a faster way to do this, but this will ensure that I get the pieces that I want. So I could stop at this point, highlight this whole thing, and get rid of it, and then switch back. Now we can do... Oh, one other thing. Here's an issue. If I go back to fill, these lines don't fill anymore. And that's because they're not closed. These ends are now open. If we get rid of this, you can clearly see that these are all open. So what I need to go through and do is close those off. And the easiest way to do that is just to zoom in and draw a line. And we'll come back and clean this up. What ends up happening is these lines don't end up exactly where I want them to be. So if I reattach them, like so, there we go. Once I've drawn the line and I have attached it to the other side, I can continue drawing lines, but I don't want to, so I press the escape key to tell it to stop doing lines. And I come over to my edit nodes and then select the line and make sure that it's attached to each of the corners. Now that we have this cleaned up, I'll turn the computer back on. And then, well, let's do this. Our green line, we can get rid of. We don't need that anymore. Let's turn this back on. And if we go to our preview, all right, show me what it is. Okay, this will happen. You'll end up with some artifacts left over. And I tried to delete them. Okay, now we can see that the lines, these circuit paths, don't continue on through my project like they were. We don't see them behind the screen. We don't see them in the laptop. We kind of see them here, but that's part of the shadow of the laptop, so we should see them there. And that cleans this up, and so it will burn nicely. Anyway, that's how I did this this other one. That's how I got this particular coaster all set up, is I went behind the images and deleted the circuit paths where I don't need them. So, anyway, this is something you can do within LightBurn. It's a little putsy. Would it be faster in Photoshop or some other program? Probably. What this does give me, though, is a combination of vectors. So these are just done as vectors versus these are done as images. And with so many images on here, having this one chunk of circuit paths done as an image probably wouldn't have been so bad. I hope you found this educational, helpful, whatever. If you liked the video, please hit the thumbs up. And if you like the content of our channel, think about subscribing. It really helps the analytics within YouTube, and it helps the channel out, it helps support us, that sort of thing. Anyway, have fun doing your CNC at home projects.